everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my top 5 book recommendations by female authors about the great outdoors. So you find me here on quite a gloomy January day, and it tends to be being in the winter months, we are getting out maybe slightly less, or the days are slightly shorter, so you have more time to read about the outdoors than maybe at other times of the year. So that's why I wanted to focus on books today. I am really passionate about reading and literature, and so I thought it would be a great opportunity on my channel that's about hiking to talk about some female authors who have written about this area, whether it's nature, climbing or hiking. So the first book I wanted to recommend is Space Below My Feet by Gwen Moffat. This is a memoir of part of Gwen Moffat's life where she had recently left the Land Army just after World War II, and she finds herself in North Wales living in this amazing landscape, and she meets these people who sort of introduce her to the world of climbing, and it's her story about how she really develops her craft, her skill, how she travels around North Wales to the Lake District, Scotland, and also in Europe as well. I think this is one of my best books of 2023. I thought this was phenomenal. I was in total awe of Gwen, and she would definitely do a lot of things that I wouldn't. I think she was one of the first female British mountaineers, and she has achieved an awful lot, and there's a really good documentary that I'd recommend. I will link it below. I think it's on YouTube, about her, and this reignited the passion for the book. And I think the way that she describes the landscapes, the way that she describes her experience of climbing, and this is sort of all woven in by the expectations of being a woman, a mother, and someone growing up in sort of 1948, 1954, around that sort of time period. So I would really recommend, even if you're not someone who climbs and you ramble or you hike, or you know, it's not something that you ever have an experience with, I think it's still a fantastic read. And I definitely don't climb in these environments at all, so I felt like I still got so much out of it, and I was just very inspired to keep being outdoors and keep sort of embracing nature and the mountains in its most wildest sense. The next book I wanted to recommend is The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd. I have a lovely edition here. It's published by Canongate, and I have sort of a hardback edition with a lovely jacket with foil. And this is written by Nan Shepherd, who was born in the late 1800s in Aberdeenshire, and she spent so much of her life walking the Cairngorms and studying the area, and it's a real meditation of the different aspects that make up this part of the world. I think it does really help if you've been to the Cairngorms, although I wouldn't necessarily say it's exclusively for those who have, but I think it helps just sort of bring it to life. But she really champions some really great ideas in the world of hiking and rambling, where she speaks about, you know, it's not always about getting to the top, and actually, you know, it's important to leave your ego behind, and sometimes being in the mountains is just sort of, you know, you're just there because you love it. You're not necessarily trying to achieve anything. It's like being with old friends. And I think that idea is really, really important and quite refreshing, really, particularly in mountain literature, which can often be about, you know, the struggle to the summit. And Nan just does, or Anna, I think it's her full name, but Nan just does a lot of walking around, taking it in. She sleeps there. She goes on sort of different hikes, and she also speaks about how sometimes she likes being alone because it's actually a lot easier. You know, you don't have to be with someone who's talking too much. You can take it in the way that you want to take it, and she really embraces it in all its seasons. And so if you're looking for something that's really focusing on the actual nature as well as the walking, I would say this is a really good starting point for that. The third book on my list is Time on Rock by Anna Fleming. This is similar to Gwen Moffat, actually, in that they're both climbers rather than hikers. And it is also one of the quotes on the front actually refers to Nan Shepherd. So there's clearly a little bit of a theme going through all these books. And this title really focuses on the author's experience of starting to do some indoor climbing, then moving on to outdoor climbing, and how she finds the differences in the rock face and the sort of geology around that, the cultural significance around that. She goes to Yorkshire, North Wales, also in Europe as well, Scotland. And similarly to the Gwen Moffat, it doesn't exclusively rely on you having climbing experience. Obviously, I think it sort of helps if you know roughly maybe some of the areas that she's talking about, but I really love memoir style books, and all of these books have a slight memoir feel to them. And what I particularly like about Fleming is that this book was published, I think in 2022 it was published, so very recent. And I think whilst I really love the other, the Gwen Moffat and the Nan Shepherd, it is of a time, and it is sort of maybe earlier in the 20th century. But this is obviously written now, and I think if you're looking for modern day references and also a modern day experience of how you get to places and what it's like to be climbing and hiking in the modern world, I think this one is a really good place for that. My other recommendation, I don't actually have a copy of here, so I'm going to insert a photo of the cover, but it's I Belong Here by Anita Sethi, and it's a memoir that recalls the horrific racist abuse that the author experienced on a train travelling across the UK, and this really impacted her identity and self-esteem, and really shook her entire world. And as a way to reclaim the space and to feel confident in herself after experiencing such an awful situation, was to go walking. And so she decides to walk the Pennine Way, and she starts in Edale, which is the beginning of the Pennine Way and somewhere that I really love and have spent quite a lot of time in. And she sort of goes on her journey and starts to write about the landscape, but also write about her experience, how she feels, and ultimately a healing process, and recovering through what she went through and other people's responses to what she went through, including, you know, train staff and passers-by, and how that has shaped her worldview and experience, and how these things are, you know, so deeply entwined. And I think it's really powerful, and it's a really important story. What I particularly like about her choice about walking the Pennine Way is that Kinder Scout, which is accessible from Edale, was the hill that was part of the mass trespass in 1932, when a group of ramblers were protesting against access to countryside and, you know, walking routes. And so it's a really important place in history in terms of accessibility and how people are able to walk freely and to feel safe and at peace in nature, and to not you know, have that taken away from them. So I think I'm really looking forward to reading it, because I think it's one that combines lots of different aspects of walking identity. So I will be definitely reading that as soon as it arrives. And the fifth recommendation I have, it's two. They're both guidebooks actually by the same author. So we have the Ramble guides by Athena Mellor, and one is the Lake District and the other one is the Peak District, which goes into a little bit more detail about the Kinder trespass that I just mentioned. These are, well, what can I say? These are fantastic. I love these. I think what I really like about certain types of writing is when you're spoken to in a way as it's almost like a conversation. I think cookbook writers can be really good at this, where they're speaking to you in a way that you feel like you're almost sat across your kitchen table talking about how to make mayonnaise. Even if you have no interest, you're just sort of there and you're feeling their energy. And I think Athena does this beautifully, but in the context of walking and hiking. And she beautifully combines these with her own photographs that her family has taken, and she's clearly, these places have clearly meant a lot to her, and her own experience of being in these places is very well researched, and you can actually almost read them like a book. Actually, it's that beautiful. So you see you've got different sort of information on the stone, you've got sort of recommendations about food places, you've got some fantastic, this is Lady Bower Reservoir, which is, I'll link a video below where I did go here. One of the things that I particularly like about these guidebooks is that they do mention public transport, particularly the Peak District one, because I think it is really important to have less cars going to these beautiful spaces, because the car parks just aren't big enough, and it's really great if we can utilise the public transport available and to try and show the demand that there is a lot of need for these services, and that hopefully they will stay, and even potentially have more connectivity to these beautiful places. So I think what Athena does really well, similarly to Nan Shepherd, is to really just celebrate the outdoors and celebrate getting out there, and it's about the joy of that, and it's not about doing the biggest, the best, the most challenging thing, pushing yourself to the absolute limits. It's actually about finding the enjoyment in those spaces and having this beautiful moment of all these things coming together. So if there's any pressure around what the connotations of being outdoors can sometimes mean, the sort of more adrenaline or the sort of competition, I think what these books do quite well is just really just embrace the joy of being outside, and I think that's a message that I would really love to encourage and to promote. So hopefully there might be something here that you are interested in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you could subscribe, that would be amazing, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.